So when looking at the map, there's an Eastern concept of the underlying the yin yang, right? And this matches with chronobiology, and you're going to sort of see through the science and research why certain peaks happen, and that's why our energy systems are the way they're laid out. So, look familiar? Yin-yang symbol, right? So, as above, so below. As within, so without. So the concept of Eastern principles is that we're in a holographic universe, right? So everything is a micro or macro representation of itself, of the system. And this is very apparent when we lay the day out like this, right? So think about this. This darkness more is the yin, or the absorbing phase. Think moon. This is more of what would be like sort of sun or yang phase, right? So at any given time, you can see that let's say at midnight here, or it's really yin, right? It's darkness, it's recovery. At noon, it's more yang, right? Sun's up, our body, our circulatory system is active. So it's this process of how the energy cycles. And this cycle, again, happens on a micro and a macro scale. So if we want to view our life, this would be birth. We're born right here, sort of, and as our life rises up, sort of middle age, we're before middle age, right? We're a lot of yang. So birth, by the time we're in this youth here, we have a lot of yang energy, a lot of outgoing, pouring energy. Then as we cycle through to the opposite length of birth, we get our sort of midpoint in life, and we start to be a little bit more yin than we are yang. And as we come back around, sort of that's to death. And then that's sort of the cycle. So a microcycle of this, every 2 hours, this sort of plays out. And in a day, this plays out. So again, cycles on cycles on cycles. So if we understand the concept, it really layers itself well. So if you look here, most people will get up who do early morning stuff around this sort of 4:30 to 6 or 7 window, right? Around 3:30, we start to get a subtle shift where we start to get a little bit more yang in the system. A lot of people wake up at 3:30. It starts to do that shift from yin to yang. There's still yin, that's still dark outside. We're not fully charged, but we're starting to notice the transition from yin to yang around. My drawing's not perfect, but around 3:34, start to kick in. And then by the time the sun's coming up, right, from 9 a.m., full sun, and then it's different times of the year, but sort of peak here, give or take, peak sunrise is sort of between noon and 3, depending on the season and where you live, right? And then from peak sunrise, or peak sun in the sky, we start to get, even though it's still sunny here and it's still sunny out, it's starting to accumulate more yin than yang, or more recovery than activity. And as our recovery gets more and more and greater in our system, until it peaks and then goes back around to more activity. So our natural system flows this way, right? Every 2 hours we have a micro version of this, or every 2 or 3. So these sort of cycles happen in between each day pull and day trail, each cycle. That's why we set it up the way we do. But you can sort of also see in a day, in a section of a day, this repeats. In a year, this would be sort of the same. Winter, right? This would be spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, winter solstice, give or take, right? So you could see in a year, from peak summer, we start to, even though it's still hot, there's more yang than yin here as we go into fall. Then at some point in fall, right, depending where we live, we transition to more fall, more yin than yang. fall, winter. We're full, dark, cold, recovery, very yin. We sleep more. It's darker outside. And then at some point, even though right around, I think it's December 21st, give or take some days, we start to accumulate, the days start to get a little bit longer. But we don't really notice it. And it's a little bit longer. We don't really notice it. And all of a sudden, sort of the time change happens in spring equinox. And all of a sudden, whoa, it's spring and it's starting to get summer and it's staying light longer and longer and there's more energy available, right? So this is a cycle that happens throughout our lifetime. For us, it happens throughout a year for us. It happens throughout a day for us. And it happens in microsections of our day, which is called ultradian rhythms within that. So cycles on cycles on cycles. So if we understand the concept of the cycle, we can understand where we are within the cycle and we know where we're going. And that's sort of the key, understanding and continuity. So again, layering this to the concepts that we already have makes more sense. Why intention is here, why vision is here, right? Why passion is, and action is at the most yang in passion. And then we start to see the view from the top of the mountain, and then we start to collect, and we're collecting yin, collecting, pulling in, right? Reflecting, like winter, we sit back and reflect, it's getting dark, right? And then rest and recovery, and then intention, initiation again. So the cycles of life play out throughout our whole life, throughout the year, throughout the day, and throughout every 2 or 3 hours within our day, even 90 minutes sometimes. So these cycles happen. The more we can observe and understand and just sort of feel where we are within the cycles, our ability to make the right decisions happens easier and easier and easier. I hope this makes sense.